Good morning.
Hello, everybody. We're
This
back.
is August 23rd, 2021. Oh, who's this? Who's this little friend?
This is Boobo.
We haven't seen Boobo for a while.
Yeah.
So,
So
the unofficial third host of Transmission.
yeah. Boobo also doubles as Creepy Frog.
People who are listening and not seeing, it's better this way. Well, this is nice tie-in. CK says, "Good morning, Vietnam."
That's right. Oh, one of my favorite lines.
And then Leah says, "Good morning." But you know what? I'm kind of worried about this series.
You're worried?
Yeah, because I don't know how we're going to tie in foreign affairs and crumbling of the American empire on Friday if we want to talk about fascism.
Well, we've got a whole week to figure it out.
Yeah, how do we tie that?
But you know, yeah. So I'm thinking about new big numbers and transmission. So our next big number is 250. Hard to believe. It's coming up soon. But here's the funny thing. I had a truly, you like to have these experiences that sort of put you in your place. You know, it's kind of a quasi-humiliating experience. This was also really funny. So it's good. So last week, I was doing a lot of kayaking on Lake Superior, which was awesome.
Yeah, I saw all your pictures.
Yeah, but at one point we're kayaking along, and this butterfly pulls up alongside of us, flying. I'm like, oh, great.
I was hoping it was in a tiny little kayak. That would have been
cool. Yeah, it is. No, it was flying, or she. I'm like, great. We're racing a butterfly. And so we're kayaking along, the butterfly's flying, and then the butterfly just fucking takes off and just leaves us in the butterfly dust, in the little fairy dust. And it is amazing how fast butterflies actually fly. There was no way we could keep up with this thing. It was really pretty funny. It was great.
That just reframes a lot of things, because like when you see a butterfly just kind of fluttering, it's not because they're slow, it's because they're enjoying life.
Exactly.
They can totally just blast past, but they don't, because they live in the now, just as the Lord Jesus taught them. Consider the butterflies of the field, my friend. So anyways, we could talk about butterflies this whole time. It'd be more pleasant, but we're talking about imperial collapse, Afghanistan, all that kind of juicy, delicious stuff.
But I guess we should probably introduce ourselves.
Yeah,
we haven't done that yet. So I'm Daniel Wolpert. I direct MICA, the Minnesota Institute of Contemplation and Healing.
And I'm Ash Van Steenhoek. I direct the Center for Prophetic Imagination.
Yeah. And and the other thing was I actually felt pretty good about this too. I told you something about movies that you didn't know.
I mean, it was from before.
Which is kind of but still, you're up on a lot of these things.
I tend to be a nerd for things like this. Yes.
Yeah, you are. So there was this movie that Robert Redford was in. There was this, one of these kind of crime movies, and we looked it up. It was from 1972.
Mm-hmm.
So Ash was but a twinkle in his parents' eye, then, as we like to say, and in the early 70s, one of the big sort of groovy things was people were getting turned on to hypnosis, and hypnosis was all cool, and like you can make people do weird stuff, and it was this thing for a while. And so they were using that in the movie, and the idea was that the Robert Redford character would say this buzzword, which would put this person who'd been, pre-programmed into this hypnotic state, and then could get them to, I don't know, I don't remember what it was. I don't know if it was like open an office or, get him into somewhere we shouldn't be. So the code phrase was Afghanistan banana stand. And he was saying this to this guy in an elevator, and of course the Robert Redford character didn't really think this would work, so he's feeling all embarrassed, like he's going to say this stupid thing in an elevator, and the guy's going to turn to him and go, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And of course, people don't talk in elevators, so that's weird anyway. But anyway, he did it, and it worked. So that was
try it out, everyone.
Something that happened almost 50 years ago, before the Afghanistan fiasco that we're going through now. So here's my thing about all of this, and Gus has a butterfly joke.
Are you saying the butterfly was loitering?
That's right. Butterflies loiter, so we need to arrest them.
Mm-hmm. Tiny little handcuffs.
Teeny tiny.
Yeah.
So tiny. Yeah, you can't even see them.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe for butterflies, you have to have special wing cuffs, because if you handcuff them, they can still fly away.
Not if they're attached to something on the other end, like shackles.
That's true. That's true.
We're not talking about Afghanistan much at all, except for if it's next to the word banana stand.
Yeah. So anyway, what I was saying before the show started, which I can't get, if everybody's just bullshitting everyone, or if people are. I cannot believe that anybody expected any other result out of this 20-year war.
Yeah. Let's put 20 in quotes, because yes, for the United States.
Yeah.
There's poor Afghanistan.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, that's the other thing, is that what most people don't seem to know is that, this part of the world has been in the crosshairs of empire since at least Alexander the Great, if not before then.
Yeah.
Because this is an area of the world that you have to go through when you're going from East Asia to West Asia, or South Asia to North Asia. And so, there have been trade routes through here. There have been, people coming and going through here for a long, long time. So people have been trying to control this part of the world, to take it over, to occupy it, to, cajole it onto their side for a long, long time. And, it usually doesn't work, because, when you come into a place with a big army and start killing people, they usually don't like you, which is something that, I don't know why that's so hard to understand. I just don't get that.
They just don't like freedom.
They don't like freedom. There we go.
Yeah. And so this is, I saw this meme that said, now the distance between today and 1980 is longer than the distance between 1939 and 1980, or whatever. So basically, to make all of us who are over 40 feel really old.
Yeah.
And I bring that up because, there's adults that have never known a time that we haven't been in Afghanistan. And before that, the thing I knew about Afghanistan was that's where one of the Rocky movies took place, because the Soviet Union had been there for a long time.
Right.
And before that, it was the British Empire. And there was overlap where Russia and Britain was fighting over it. Before that, you go back. And so this has been a place of a set of peoples geography that has been under siege for a long time, and then we act as though somehow there's something stupid about them that allows why don't they stand up against the Taliban? It's like as though somehow like this isn't all the fault of Western powers.
Right.
Like,
well,
where did the Taliban get their guns? Did we arm them to fight against the Russians? Maybe, like, we destabilize and devastate. And this is the thing: the goal is never ever to install. Like, we could act as though the United States is so inept that we were never able to do what we wanted to do there, or you could say we kind of did what we wanted to do there, and we're done. So let's move away. Like, however you want to look at it. The truth is, I don't think stable democracy in Afghanistan was ever the ultimate goal. It's never the ultimate goal. I mean, this ties into we can start talking about how empires function. Mm-hmm. But this area is destabilized. And now you see what happens is the politicization of secondary and tertiary things. Like, now the humanitarian concerns come out as though we've been like, up until now, humanitarianism has been the driving force.
Right.
So then there's pictures of like dead babies and like this, all the things, all the horrible things get brought out as though that's been the driving force, or that the United States has always gotten involved in different countries around the world out of humanitarianism. Right. It is bizarre. And then then it puts you in this position where if you say, well, maybe we should just not go back and mess them up more. It's like, is that because you like babies being killed?
Right, you like dead babies?
Or do you delight in them? You must.
Yeah. See, now where I thought you were going with that meme about the different eras was with Vietnam.
Oh, yeah, well.
Because to me, being one of those old people who bridge that gap of longer than 1980 and 2021, watching this happen is an exact replay of what happened in Vietnam. I mean, it literally, like, you could roll the tape and it would be the same thing, only it's Afghanis instead of Vietnamese folks.
Different side of Asia, but otherwise.
Yeah, different side of Asia, exactly the same thing. But as you point out, there's huge numbers of people that, of course, were not alive when that was happening. Mm-hmm. But it was all the same kind of stuff there. I remember hearing the exact same thing. Why won't the South Vietnamese fight? Why don't they love what we've done there? We've carpet bombed and defoliated their entire country. Why aren't they happy with us? I don't understand. Like, why don't they like democracy? Why don't they, why is it so easy for the North Vietnamese to overrun the country? And oh my gosh, why are we caught so flat-footed and we're helicoptering people off of the roofs of hotels, which is what was happening a couple days ago. And so this is the other interesting thing to me is there's the event in and of itself, but there is also the refusal to learn, right? Because if you were to learn, then you would have to admit that there's some sort of fundamentally flawed thing with what you're up to, and you would have to do something different, right? And it's the same exact issue. The other thing that's fascinating here is then the refugee issue, right? So suddenly you have all these people, including many Republicans, who are like, yes, save all those brave Afghanis who helped us, right? Meanwhile, on the southern border, you've got hundreds of thousands of people coming from countries in Central America that we basically destroyed. And we're like, oh no, those people are terrible. We can't let them in, right? As if it's some sort of different mechanism going on,
Here's the sad thing about the Vietnam versus Afghanistan thing. As far as I can tell, the war in Vietnam brought a really good bunch of pop music into American consciousness, and we didn't get any of that. As far as I can tell, and this was during the time of the Russian occupation of Afghanistan. But as far as I know, our conflicts in Afghanistan, the high watermark of art in the United States was Rocky III, or not Rocky III, Rambo III. Like, so Creedence Clearwater Revival, Fortunate Son versus Rambo III. Like, yeah. Do we even deserve to be an empire at this point? If that's the best we can do. Yeah. CK just brings up the name of the film,
the
with
movie.
Redford. Yeah,
the Hot Rock. Yeah, which refers to a diamond. That's why.
I thought it was Dwayne Johnson looking sexy.
That came later.
Yeah, that was later. CK writes, "Why is no one patting the U.S. and the CIA on the back for training the Taliban so well?" These are important questions.
Yeah.
Pat them on the back with something. Anyways, CK writes, "The war machine is not designed to keep the peace." How cynical. How cynical of you, CK.
I know. CK, you must be angry and ineffective. All right, we've got this is great here. Thank you, Gwen.
So Con writes, Vietnam refugee here. This has triggered a lot of memories and traumas in my family. We are retelling the stories of our escape and seeing the same scenes replay. I was 3 when we escaped and grew up in the American white savior USA is great for rescuing us. Now that I'm older and actually learn the history of American imperialism in Asia, I hope I'm wiser. Asians in America because America was in Asia. We really do never learn.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I mean, the person who was the student graduation speaker at my high school, which was in Los Angeles, was also a Vietnamese refugee from the war. Was a young teenager, maybe 10 or 11, when his family escaped. And just told these horrific stories. And when Deborah and I were in northern Thailand, and we went to the eastern part of the country, which is not the popular tourist part of the country, and we went to this one city called Udon Thani, which the airport there at the time of the secret bombing of Cambodia was the second busiest airport in the world from the B-52 traffic. And, that was just very powerful for me, going to these places that I've been hearing about in the news my whole childhood, and seeing this stuff. And at that time, those Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam were still not accessible to Westerners. And it just, it's an unbelievable waste of resources. It's an unbelievable level of trauma that you're exacting on other people. And to me, it connects so much with, of course, this, we say empire, which it is, but it is this white supremacy ideology that we are the best, right? We know better. Right. We Americans who don't even know our history from 50 years ago, we know better than a backwards tribal people who, I can't tell you how many times I've heard the phrase Middle Ages in the last couple of weeks when people are talking about Afghanistan, like, you guys are going back to the Middle Age. Like, these people know their history.
Into the myth of progress that we talked about.
Yeah, the myth of progress. These people know their history for thousands of years. They know exactly what's going on. And you're going to tell me that you're going to take some American kid, basically, right? Some 18, 19, 20-year-old kid. You're going to take them to this country to teach them how to live in this world, how to survive better. The hubris of it is so obscene. It is so obscene. And then of course you hear these tales of PTSD and trauma of these soldiers that come back who then realize, oh my gosh, I was just sold a complete sack of shit that, and look what I've done, look at what we've done. And it's horrendous, right? It's absolutely horrendous. And yeah, and the imperial machine is not designed to learn, and so we need to be the voice of learning in the midst of that.
Julia writes, the war in Vietnam brought some amazing, industrious, fun-loving immigrants to the United States. One tiny little silver lining. Just going to add CK's. I mean, yes. But and then there's this CK writes, my concern is the white nationalism, aka the Nazi fucks, in the U.S. that is going to happen when we bring the Afghans to the United States. Refugee stuff is always, well, it's not an accident. Like anytime there's a empire on the decline, fascism raises its head because fascism is capitalism under threat. It's a type of nationalism, like overinflation of identitarianism as a way of saying that the problem wasn't that we were involved in Vietnam. It's that the eggheads and pencil pushers wouldn't let us do the job we needed to do. And we
right, wouldn't let us win the war.
And so this ties in with James' comment, because this is where Rambo comes in. So there's the scene in Rambo 3 where the dude, Rambo, goes in to save, tells the Russia guy, we've had your Vietnam one, now you have yours. But hey, why have one when you have two? You can have two. So this is the thing. The whole Rambo film, the first one, which was a little bit more serious than the subsequent films, is about the betrayal of this American soldier coming back and not receiving the hero's welcome. And so there's this whole thing in the 80s that I do remember as a small child of all these films that were hyper militaristic, glorying in the Reagan time in a weird way that you haven't seen Hollywood do quite the same way since. And the idea is the reason we lost Vietnam was because we fettered our troops, and liberalism made us too squishy. And really what we need to do is allow our soldiers to be soldiers. So this is going to happen again. Like the reason why you hear it now, the reason why things have happened in, like things are so crappy in Afghanistan is because Biden is weak-willed and he's senile. And if we let the troops do what the troops do and let America be great again, we would triumph over the world. And so the idea here is the ultimate thing that's being betrayed wasn't the Vietnamese people. It isn't Afghanis. No, it's our soldiers. And the ultimate thing being betrayed is our deep, deep values as God's greatest nation on earth. And so this is, I mean, there's a little teaser for Friday. This narrative will be spun in such a way to show what we really need to do is to have these sorts of like mythic manhood, therapeutic violence, ultra nationalist God and country shit that is like the bread and butter of fascism.
And of course, the behind the scenes, economic piece to this, right, is that now all of these companies that have made literally trillions of dollars. I mean, I saw this great figure of the stock increases of Grumman Northrop and blah blah blah, all of the big weapons manufacturers over the last 20 years. The stocks are all up over 1,000% in that period of time. Well, now, they don't have a war that they're supplying weapons to. And so you bet all of their lobbyists are swarming in Washington right now going, okay, like, where's the next place that you need weapons? Because, they don't want their sales to go down. Mm-hmm. And so that was true after Vietnam as well, right? I mean, all these companies had hugely profited from this, and they needed more places to occupy. They needed to sell more weapons around the world, and that's something that the average American person is so hopelessly unaware of. I mean, the amount of weaponry that we sell around the world, which is largely self-funded, right? So it's military aid. So we pay for it to get sent somewhere else, right? Like this whole thing of like, well, where do all these weapons come from? Like, well, you paid for them, and then the amount of that is going on is astronomical. Right, our weapon sales dwarf every other weapon sale in the world combined by orders of magnitude, and these companies have got to keep profiting, which means that there have to keep being these wars, high level conflicts, low level conflicts, whatever you want to call them.
Some police departments.
Yeah. Well, right, and then when there's no war, you sell them twice. Right, so you've sold them once to the Pentagon, and now you give a grant to a police department. You sell them a second time.
More comments. James writes, I have a brother-in-law who was in Afghanistan in the military as a cave hunter. He is a damaged human being from his experience, and I dread actually talking with him about what is going on now.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so sorry. It's horrible.
Like this, there's so much dehumanization that goes around, and it's traumatic. And then I'm not a big fan of like the military, but then like doesn't matter how far left or pacifist you are, the way that we treat Vietnam or any vets when they come back, it's like the VA is crappy.
Yeah.
It's not because of the people who work there's fault. It's like there's always these funding battles. It's just really messed up because it just shows you all these human beings are pawns in some sort of imperial game that just benefits the relative few. Cheryl writes, imagine a culture of learning. I would like to imagine that it's hard.
Yeah.
Because you don't see enough of it.
Yeah.
Julia writes, interesting that we hear a similar argument about the war on crime. Let cops be cops.
Right. Yeah. Great point. Yeah, we hear that all the time. We've been hearing that a lot in Minneapolis.
Yeah, so we have this kind of like mushy thing going on the ballot that isn't as sharp as any of the activists really want. And what I hear about is like this is some sort of betrayal of the police.
Oh yeah.
Like they have a divine right of kings to do their job, and we're getting in the way of their divine mandate. Is how it's almost pitched.
Julia's got a website.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, the war stocks list.
There so it's on the CNN.com. Look for war stocks.
Yeah, it's quite impressive.
Yeah, kind of I don't know how to pronounce Vietnamese names very well, so I'm sorry. But Viet Thanh Nguyen, first Vietnamese Pulitzer Prize winner for The Sympathizer, is a great voice speaking out on American imperialism, war, and issues from a refugee perspective. He has books and many articles in the New York Times.
Yeah, definitely check him out. I actually just heard a really great interview piece with him on the radio a few weeks ago. Yeah, clearly brilliant guy, very articulate. Mm-hmm. Haven't read any of his books, but they sound really interesting. So,
CK writes, this country is running out of brown countries and people invade and kill. Who's next? There's always more. You know?
Yeah, one of the really terrifying comments that I heard Biden make when he was justifying this withdrawal was, well, the war on terror is shifting to Africa, right? Counterterrorism is shifting to Africa, so we don't need to be in Afghanistan anymore. Now we need to be in Africa. So.
Wow. You know what Africa could use some more of? Western intervention and colonization.
Yeah, because it was so good for it the first time around.
Oh my God. It's just the history thing. You brought this up about, this sort of intellectual arrogance that somehow we in the West in general, but the United States in particular, have some sort of deep understanding of how the world ought to be. is funny. I mean, I was just listening to a podcast called Behind the Bastards. I've started getting into that while I've been running. And, I know a little, I know more about the Spanish Civil War than the majority of Americans, but like not a ton because we don't learn about it. But like all the rise of fascism in Europe and how it got there and the way in which the United States engaged or didn't engage. I mean, this was 100 years ago, so maybe it's too far. But like it set the stage for a set of things that we don't know about those things either. And then we don't know why we went to Vietnam. People don't know. Something about communism. We're not supposed to hate it. That's why Bernie Sanders is bad now. Like, it's just all we're dumb. And it's not because we lack intellectual capacity. It's because it's almost as if there's something about our system that actively encourages ignorance about social systems and history.
Maybe you're onto something there.
As long as we have that STEM spending, it's fine. Not to rip on the sciences, but like, what's the point of knowing how to do things nuclear and stuff? Don't know history. It's like we're being set up to be a killing machine or something. Gus writes, maybe Lockheed Martin should have saved up in case of an emergency, or spend less on avocado toast.
Yeah, there we go.
Julia writes, $15.4 billion. That's how much the U.S. has spent on military weapons for police departments. Since 2018.
Yeah.
I could do a lot with $15.4 billion.
That's unbelievable.
I don't know if I've mentioned this on air, but this is always the example I give whenever we talk about billionaires and billions of dollars being spent. Like, in a better world, billionaires shouldn't exist. But if for some reason there's a way to have billionaires in a just world, why spend it? Like, why not pay to have a band follow you so you always have a soundtrack to your life? Like, those are the things that if you're going to waste money on things, you should spend it on.
That's what you should do.
Like, why not?
Yeah.
When you enter to a Starbucks, it's like, Ashes go on to get a latte. I mean, how much better would life be? But instead, they're like, I'm going to invest in Lockheed Martin and shit. It's dumb.
Except what would happen if two of those people came together? Ooh, then you'd have
Battle of the
Bands.
And then everyone wins then. It's great. And that's how we could settle international conflict.
There we go.
All right,
we gotta wrap it up.
Sorry. Richard has a link from the Daily Beast. John Oliver calls Afghanistan a stain on Biden's legacy. It's just a stain on legacy in general.
Period.
Leah writes, The Sympathizer is a great book. Highly recommend it. I hadn't heard of this. Thanks for bringing this up because it sounds like something worth checking out.
He's really good.
Julia writes, Nigeria is the perfect storm for the new brown country spot for U.S. military machine.
Yeah, Nigeria, well, in the Congo, and all these places that we need to extract minerals and oil and stuff from.
There'll be extraction of resources, but the thing that will make the news is human rights stuff. And somehow, like anything that Western powers do will just not be talked about. And so we'll be saviors. And people lick that stuff up. Like, I know people who are really, really smart who just eat it up. Yeah. And because they're good people. Like, our government and the media and the very wealthy are colluding to manipulate our compassion. It's just really gross. Gus writes, I almost joined the Marines out of high school and had a lot of friends that did. It's been interesting hearing some of them talk about their experiences both in the service and after.
All right, and CK ends with the question of the day.
How's the war on COVID coming?
Not good.
We need Biden with a giant banner on the top of a hospital with the words "Mission Accomplished" on it. That's what we need.
That's right. It's a
little Bush reference for you youngins. Gus writes, Behind the Bastards has a nice 4-parter on the Congo. Holy shit.
There we go. Gus the Librarian comes through. All right. And Ellen also has a book reference. Wow, we've got a lot of good reading and listening material out of today's episode.
Check out The Gunseller by Hugh Laurie.
Okay, cool.
Keep the learning
all right,
going,
well, It's great to be back. Great to hear from everybody. And we will be back on Wednesday.
See you Wednesday, everybody. Bye.
See ya.